We present VEMPIC, Particle-in-Polyhedron Fluid Simulation for Intricate Solid Boundaries. This is an extension of the particle-in-cell fluid simulation technique that enables the use of general polyhedral cells by using the virtual element method. This extension allows us to harness geometric cut cells to create simulations that unconditionally respect complex obstacles without any preprocessing on the mesh. PIC creates dynamic fluid flows by simultaneously maintaining two representations of a fluid, particles to handle fluid motion, and a mesh to handle global tasks like maintaining incompressibility of the fluid velocity. Geometric cut cells are a volumetric representation of a simulation domain generated by intersecting a voxel grid with a triangle mesh. The elements, called cut cells, are arbitrary polyhedra but maintain many of the advantages of Cartesian grids without losing the fine details of the triangle mesh. Even though this example has all of these deficiencies, we can simulate a smoke plume rising through this pathological geometry without performing mesh modification or repair. To the right, we have the velocity norm of our fluid particles, with green highlighting more energetic particles. Because the geometric cut cells are arbitrarily complex polyhedra, we employ the virtual element method to not only define transformations between particles and our polyhedral cells, but also to define a high-fidelity quadratic pressure projection step. VEM can handle arbitrary polyhedral cells because it uses two spaces of shape functions rather than the typical one. The so-called virtual space respects cell geometry, and its basis coefficients can be extracted via a generalized box filter. The second one is a polynomial space, which allows for pointwise evaluations and the analytical evaluation of integrals inside each cell. VEMPIC is a straightforward generalization of a standard PIC iteration. On top of defining whether a subprocedure is performed on particles or on the mesh, we only have to add specifications for whether mesh subprocedures lie on the virtual space or the polynomial space. The result is a fluid simulator that can avoid aliasing artifacts along diagonal walls and can support sub-grid passages with ease. In 3 dimensions, the simulator easily handles standard shapes like a simple torus. For our 3-dimensional examples, we will show smoke plumes and velocity visualizations. The velocity visualizations were created by tracing interesting particles over time and coloring them according to the norm of their velocity. It also works on more complex shapes, like this elaborate Hilbert curve. Even though the space between walls is as small as 2 grid cells, we still generate multiple plumes and vortices. We look at the behavior of a standard grid-based smoke simulator within Blender called MantaFlow. Note how in our side-by-side orthographic renderings, the standard smoke simulator barely notices the first layer of rods and flows directly upward. By contrast, the VEMPIC smoke is split by the rods into distinct plumes. We attribute MantaFlow's behavior to the finite difference stencil's axis-aligned bias. We note that MantaFlow stores density on a grid, whereas we store density on particles, so the smoke has a qualitatively different appearance. This test is intended to only illustrate the differences in how our methods resolve fine features. After removing the mouth and eyes of the Blender Suzanne model, we placed a smoke generator under her eyes. Even though the holes we placed in this low-resolution mesh are quite small, we create a physically correct flow. Buoyancy inside the head pushes the smoke out of the eyes and induces a pressure that drives air in through the mouth. Even after indicating that the mesh is planar, MantaFlow only created a single flow through a single eye. Now, moving on to a more challenging case, this dragon mesh has many fine details and scanning artifacts. This is especially true in its mouth, but our simulator is able to resolve flow inside the mouth without any issues. The smoke flows through the various small gaps between the legs and the tail as well. This face model might look like a simple plume, but there's quite a lot going inside of its head. On the outside, the smoke follows the contours of the model. On the inside, the smoke flows through the front and out the back, with several smaller vortices forming in various pockets. We can even support meshes that were never intended for simulation, like this cruth. Its body is composed of thin walls, and it has other small features like the bridge and strings. Note how the fluid flows around the very slender strings. Even though the fins of this crudely crafted vent are implemented using simple planes that pierce through the frame, our simulator can produce the expected phenomenology. We don't have to worry about the grid resolution, thicken the fins, or repair the non-manifold edges at the fin-frame intersection. Finally, we hope you enjoy the following additional examples of flow around various objects.